Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Lost my first game. Had to win, but then blundered a full queen and still made a game out of it. But my opponent played accurately and checkmated me in about 15 or 20 moves since the initial loss of the queen. Has some well-placed aggressive minor pieces. White is currently trying to say the focus should be on the knight at c3. It's pinned and attacked twice. Let's try this one. Pretty sure we got this now. Okay. What a finish. Wow. Scandinavian defense. Some of this is just book. This is all book. Even bishop to d2 can be considered book. We're a little bit deep into the game for this to be book, but this is the move. This is one of the moves to play here. I played g3. I've had some success contesting black's queen along this diagonal, the h2 to b8 diagonal. Fiend shadowing my bishop because I've taken time out to play g3, so I might as well fiend shadow the bishop, have a very strong bishop on the h1 a8 diagonal, and that's part of the reason for g3 in the first place. We get our dark squared bishop active with tempo, and then we're also going to have a very powerful light squared bishop. e6 by my opponent is a little bit timid. Knight f3, simple and straightforward normal development. Things start to heat up here with bishop to d6. The bishops are squaring off against each other. White would normally want to capture rather than allow doubling of pawns on the f file, where these pawns would be a real hindrance. These three pawns on the king side are then targets. So I played queen to d2 to recapture with my queen in the event of a capture, and also the queen is now active. Castling king side is fine for black here, and I looked at the position. I thought both at this point, and then here, I all thought castling king side or maybe castling queen side. And I said, you know what? One of my trademarks is delaying castling. Let's see if it still works as we introduce one of my newer weapons, the pawn storm. So h4 begins a pawn storm with the usual computer criticism, and knight to d5, trying to bully on the f4 square. Bully's not the right word. We're trying to add pressure to the f4 square currently with my bishop occupying it, as well as maybe there's some ideas of, I don't know, doubling pawns or doing something here. It's a good active square for the knight. Going back though, you might see now this bishop is going to be a difficult piece to activate. You might activate it with a slow move like b6. If we can move e6 slowly, we can move b6 slowly and introduce black's light squared bishop into the game. We as black here for a moment. And then knight to d7 is a natural move for the knight, and some natural developing moves or good developing moves have been made, noting of course that knight to d7 allows perhaps bishop takes d6, so you just have to note about the timing on that. Maybe just introduce the trade first, then b6, then bishop to a6, and then knight to d7, and black has developed. So black is having a little bit of difficulty developing some of the pieces off the back row, so I'm just going to push and make a strong attack early. Knight takes f4, pawn takes f4. Now the scattered design of these pawns, so what? I'm not giving up this. I'm not giving up this pawn for free. Bishop takes f4, queen takes f4. So that's not on. That's not going to be tried by black. I have this G file that's semi-open against black's king, a pawn that can really dig into some of these defenses. So then pawn to h6, and queenside castle I believe is accurate. That's fine. I'm fine with that. b5, looking for counteractivity on the queen side is fine, but it doesn't help black's main issue, which is development. b5 puts a pawn into play where you really want to get your bishop to a6, and not in a way that he's hitting at the back of his pawn. So instead of b5, I would recommend b6. Pawn to b6 is a little bit cramped, a little bit more timid, but also a better move. So I guess I chose the correct rook here. I wrote rook h to g1. Is I guess, yeah, a little bit better than rook d to g1, mostly because if there are tactics where this pawn is captured and where the bishop is, that could lead to queen takes d6, queen takes d6, rook takes d6. So not that by black, but instead, you know, the pawn's off the board, queen takes d6, and the bishop's lost, because at this point black will not want to trade queens, but rather to avoid doing so. The bishop's still lost, so this is why I chose rook to g1, or rook h to g1 instead of the rook on the d file. Keep these guys strong. The simple version is keep this battery on the d file strong. Rook to e8 is a good move. Knight to e5, just ratcheting up the pressure on the king side. We've got at least two pawns that could be part of an attack. We've got a knight that's just asking to justify his existence. A bishop that can move out of the way onto this lovely diagonal, b1 to h7, and in the process might reveal an attack on the king or an attack on just the pawn at g7. The queen's kind of trained in, like this what I'm trying to say here, forget all these specifics, right? All these specifics, I'll do you one better. However many there are, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 red squares on the board, and the arrows, whatever, here. All right, that's it. And if you want to include arrows, how about this one? That's it. That's really what this board should say if you're playing a game. This board says attack on the king side. I found the correct response here. The material's there. I mean, this rook, whether there's a blocked attack, that wouldn't quite work, so no. The rook moves to the b file, and we're still gathering an extra pawn, and this pawn is going to fall sooner or later. You know, you just, as much as it is, like I said, and I do believe it is attack black's king, don't cough up some of these opportunities that might arise along the way. So bishop takes c6 is a great move there. A full rook, and you know, some of this attack just sort of plays itself out. We're utilizing the g7 pawn, which we knew thematically, I shouldn't say we knew thematically queen takes h6 was a looming threat that could show up at some point, capturing the pawn, threatening checkmate on g7. this, you know, all right. So yeah, Queen G5, pretty much out of thoughts for queen safety, and we're always aware that pawn to H6 could make things worse for black in the future. What better way to celebrate that than an extra unit of initiative? I'm playing bishop to E4 so as to hold on to my bishop, but also now, like we said, we're attacking black's king. That's the idea here. This board says attack black's king. Bishop to E4. Pawn to B4. Actually, this is, it gets into inaccuracy. This is one of the better moves black has played all game. Force white to do something about this bishop, then maybe slide to C8, and then you've got a mate threat on C2. Who cares right now if the bishop's protecting that square in addition to the king, and I can, throw a rook in front, or maybe, I'm pretty sure somehow a queen could become involved in defending the C2 square. But for right now, black has to do something. Counterplay is the way to go. Pawn to B4. What did I do? I ignored it. I've got black 6 ways from Sunday over here. I didn't calculate it out to a mate in 10, or now it's a mate in 9. I didn't have this calculated all the way to this checkmate in 9, you see here, but it's what's known as an unstoppable attack, or an overwhelming attack is better. Unstoppable, let's not go there, but an overwhelming attack on your opponent's king, or just an overwhelming attack. White has an overwhelming attack. In some situations, the rook is even sliding to H1. This is an overwhelming attack. Still ignoring I lost a piece there. Still ignoring it. Still ignoring that loss of a piece. I lost another pawn, and he's threatening to queen or promote or anything. He's threatening to promote, and my king is in check. Still ignoring the attack. It's kind of cute, wasn't it? But that's a little cute. You didn't expect me. Oh, but I'm ignoring the attack. There's no checks now, right? On any of these squares that black could try to make a check, it's opponent's pawn as shield, and it's very effective when you spot it. If you spot it, it's maybe go for it, because I've had good luck with it, and just got my personal seal of approval. My opponent said, "Hey, we can't attack B2." But then maybe some threats on C2 make sense to me. I happen to have enough force guarding C2. This bishop were off, then I could still say, okay, I'm alive with rook to D2 and covering the square for the time being enough times. This is off the board, then things like bishop D3 become scary. Let's not do that. I liked it better when the board was like this. Yeah, and so bishop to H7 is a real attacker's move. I'm so glad I found this. This is the correct move. It's the way to a mate in 2. I suppose here I had a mate in 1 with queen to G8 checkmate. Instead, I chose to play queen to H5 check, where the king's going to G8, and then it's mate on H8 anyway. Was it queen to G8 checkmate? I didn't have that, did I? What I meant to say instead was pawn to G8 equals queen checkmate. Queens and checkmates, right? Pawn to G8, queens and checkmates here. Yeah, frankly, I didn't notice. I was busy flirting around with should the rook go to h1 or not. That's another checkmate. The king goes back, and then the rook's at h8. But queen to g8, queen or pawn to g8 equals queen checkmate is a totally viable move. It's one quicker, and you're usually advised to do that. If you don't, it's not that you're against your opponent more than usual, or that you're bad at chess or anything. It just means you played a different move to achieve checkmate. Okay, so my opponent resigned. Let's tidy this up just a bit here. Yeah, so I'm gonna track this game. I'm gonna try this game in a different browser or a different chess engine. What that better said. LeeChess.org has another analysis engine, meaning of all the engines there are at least two. One at chess.com and one at LeeChess. We gotta check the perimeter. Check the perimeter. We'll check the perimeter. Scooby, you and Shag, you go in the tunnels. We'll stay here and check the perimeter. That's what invite. That's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 1 for Jordan's about to play some Call of Duty. That's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 1 for Jay Wild is about to play some Call of Duty. I don't know where I picked up Chechnya. Yeah, alright. And this engine indicates, I think accurately, that this was a very accurately played game. Queen G5 thought of as perhaps as a blunder here by White. Smooth. They call it, this kind of game is smooth, late breaking, centered upon one strong attack. And any error there was not the end of the story. Was not the end of the game. Alright, I will not be playing another game in this broadcast, folks, and I'm going to work on trying to remind you of that earlier. I'm going to get better at that. It's nice to see that it was accurate here and also accurate here. So I'm happy. I played a great game. How about the other games? Some say. What happened in this game? Let's take a look. Yeah, I'm going to review this game. I'm not going to play another games tonight, or at least not broadcast. So, E3. That's a rare move. E5, D4 will capture in the center and make this symmetrical. White retains the initiative, one move lead in initiative. Black gets a fair game. Bishop e3 is fine move. Makes a tall pawn out of the bishop, but this is very strong anyway. Just securing this pawn chain. These pieces are well guarded and protected, so that has to be considered as well. Bishop e3, a little bit timid. Yeah, we maybe play bishop g5 in some situations, or bishop f4, but bishop e3 is totally playable. Some dynamic response here. Get this early pin on the knight. I thought I could exploit with knight to e4, but it looks like I miscalculated based on that this was an inaccuracy. The blunder of bishop f7 is because I can retreat my bishop to recapture rather than disrupt my king's position and allow for knight to e5 check or knight to g5 check. So instead, the bishop comes back. There's no longer a pin, but he's also not getting out of the pin by attacking my king. She or they are not. Queen a4. Right, this is the move. This keeps things together for black. With knight to d6, black is doing well. Any other move, and black is doing poorly. This is a very important juncture to get this right, and I got it. So that's some cause for optimism. I'm glad I played the correct move there. Piece for piece, but then a pawn and the ever so elusive initiative. And then the queen, so the queen drops. My opponent is playing a little more aggressively with knight to e5, but the clean pickup of the queen on a4 prompts resignation. All right. This game, I don't want to go over this game. That's it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.